Alrighty. Looks like everything is working as intended. Let's see. Hopefully my mic is loud enough. There's a bunch of background noise because it's a weekday, so I have it turned down just a little bit, just so the filter isn't having to filter out so much noise and then distorting the melodic sound of my voice. But hey, if you are new to the channel or just hanging out, I am Tree0311, Tree0311 for all you Marine infantry types out there. And we're going to be talking about some lore this evening. The April Galactapedia update for Star Citizen came out obviously at the end of April. I'm a little bit behind just because I've had recorded episodes of the Pathfinders podcast this last weekend. We did the roadmap roundup and shiny chakra reports from May 3rd, so last Wednesday, as well as the combined monthly reports for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. We recorded that on Monday, and so the roadmap roundup, the episode from the roadmap roundup and shiny chakra reports, along with a sit rep that we did, Nazarus and I did on hacking and tractor beams. That is up on my YouTube right now for you to watch. And as always, I break up the individual segments into pieces and upload those separately, as well as put the chapters into the main complete video to make it easier for you to find the information that you're looking for. So that is up on YouTube. The monthly reports, let's see, should be up on YouTube. I think Sunday is when those go up. I upload them so that way there's a new video every other day at noon EST. And the algorithm, from what I'm told, that pleases the algorithm right now. The algorithm is very, very difficult to please, far more so than my wife. My wife is pretty chill. And so if you upload a video every day, it confuses the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't like it, and so it will push you down. Versus if you spread them out a little bit, it helps get you a little bit more exposure. And not that I care too much about the algorithm, but at the same time, if you're new to this channel, you know, you may not be aware that everything I do on this channel, on my Twitch and my YouTube, is charity driven. If you look down below, you'll see that all the sub money goes to stackup.org. All the ad revenue money goes to stackup.org. Of course, donations go directly to stackup.org. I take no monetary gain from streaming and doing the podcasts and making videos. I give it all back to a cause that I believe in, which is stackup.org, connecting veterans and active duty service members with video games and gaming communities to help combat PTSD. That's why I'm here. You know, I'm connecting with you, my community, and the people out there in the Star Citizen and video gaming community. Because right now I am living in a hotel, far from home, on active duty orders, far from my family, and being here with all of you, helps keep me going, along with video chatting with my young son, so, and my wife, of course. So yeah. Before we get into the Galactapedia update, I am pleased to update you guys on the progress of my my boarding actions video. I have finished recording the voice audio for 9 out of the 12 scenes, and I have put that voice audio into the video and then edited all my B-roll clips and images around it. So the video is technically, it's like 3/4 of the way done. And this part always goes a whole lot faster than going through and finding all the appropriate, it starts off with an idea and an outline, and then from an outline I write a script, and then while I'm writing the script for each scene, I come up with ideas for B-roll images and clips from various things that would go with what I'm saying in order to provide imagery to the melodic sound of my voice and the information that I'm relaying to you via voice. And then once the script is done, I go through and I find all the appropriate B-roll and images, and I save all these things in folders. I have to do a bunch of video editing to capture this little clip out of a 20-minute video from ISC or something like that. So it's a lot of work. It's a passion project. It's something that allows me to get some creative juices flowing. It's fun. If you've seen my my first short form video, The Next Great Capital Ship, it's up on my YouTube. It did really well. It's got 17,000 views, like nearly 1,000 likes, 100 plus some odd comments. The community really took well to it, and I'm hoping that this boarding actions video will do well on top of that, because we're this close as a community to being monetized on YouTube. We're at like 919 subscribers last time I checked, and we need to get to 1,000 subscribers for the YouTube to get monetized along with Twitch. Twitch is already monetized. I've been an affiliate for a while. But yeah, the growing the channel, growing the community means more revenue for StackUp.org. And we are well on our way to our goal of $1,000. We're probably actually over $100. Don't look at the thing down below. It doesn't count everything into it. But I did the math, and we're sitting right at about $900 for our goal. And I think probably with the next Twitch payout or two, probably before the end of June-ish, we'll break 1,000, and that means that we as a community will be able to sponsor a loot crate from StackUp.org that will go to a veteran or service active duty member of the military. Usually has some video games, sometimes a console or something like that in there. Just depends on what they're able to get and who the lucky person is. But that's the goal, is to help somebody, help somebody, and maybe that will help engage with others like them and get them on a healthier path forward. 22 a day. It's military and veteran suicide and PTSD is a plague upon us, and everything we can do to stop it is worth it in my book. So yeah, I'm hoping that the boarding actions video will get us over, well over the 1,000 subs mark, get more people watching the podcasts and being exposed to the community. But I'm very excited about it. I'm going to release it next week. I'm going to do a little bit of research and ask a few other content creators what they think about when a good release date is. Because obviously there's going to be a lot of content coming out for Invictus launch week. So I want to ride the wave of that. But at the same time, I don't want to get buried in all the massive amounts of content that are going to be coming out with Invictus launch week. So I think I might release it a couple of days ahead of time. Like maybe I might even release it on Sunday. I released the Next Great Capital Ship video on Sunday, and that did really well. But it'll be done before the end of the week. Tomorrow is just really the last two scenes, and then the music, and a few little tweaks here and there just to make sure the flow is good, and incorporate some feedback that I get from the community. But yeah, it's gonna be out soon. So yeah, I'll probably release it on Sunday at noon Eastern, I think, or maybe I'll wait until after the Pathfinder. I release the monthly reports for Pathfinders. Something to think about. But if you're in my Discord and you're a member of my community, I will be putting it up on my YouTube beforehand and have it as unlisted. So that way I can share it in my Discord so you can see it in advance. A little perk for being a part of my community, being part of my active Discord. I appreciate you guys. It's always fun to talk about Star Citizen and other sci-fi stuff and video games. It's really enjoyable for me, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. But yeah, so why don't we get into the the episode for today, and we'll start talking about the lore. We're going to be going over the April Galactapedia update. Got some interesting articles in there, and we'll be using the Ark Starmap to guide our exploration of the lore. Just to be forewarned, if you're not aware, the Ark Starmap is having a bunch of issues because somehow, don't know what, CIG is aware. We do have confirmation of that. But the Ark Starmap is bugged. You can navigate it, but you can't right-click on items for information. And basically, you can just use it to find where the system that you're looking at is. You can open up the system, and then you can look at the planets and asteroid belts, what have you, within the system. But that's the extent of it. So I'm hopeful that the Ark Starmap will get fixed, but it's probably not a huge priority for CIG right now, which kind of sucks because it's a tool that I've always enjoyed using. But yeah, let's go ahead and give me 1 second. Looks good. Alrighty. And we'll transition to the other window in 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, everything looks appropriate on my end. Ooh, I need to move that up just a little bit. How did that happen? There we go. There we go. That'll do, babe. That'll do. Alrighty. So I haven't even gone through the Galactapedia update for last month yet. So we are, watching it with virgin eyes, or reading it with virgin eyes. And but yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll scroll down. And just like we do on the Pathfinders podcast, I'm going to read the preamble, just because it's a little bit of context. If you've never been interested in or followed the Galactapedia updates, so for context, Star Citizen has an insane amount of lore. It is just absolutely nuts how much lore the narrative team has put out over the last, going on 11 years. So it's really interesting reading. There's a Google Sheets document, I think is what it is, that has everything, like listed out and put, not everything, most everything, because it hasn't been updated in like 2 years, but it has almost everything for like the first 8 years in a e-reader that you can download on like a Kindle and read through. And the e-reader has literally thousands of pages of lore. If it was an actual book, it would be a massive book. It would be a series of several books. There's that much lore. And it's, and there's more than that. There's probably a couple hundred more pages. The reason I like doing the Galactapedia updates is because when they go through and they add these articles to the Galactapedia, they often, this is the most up-to-date source of information, whereas a lot of the older lore and older information from other sources is good, and until something new comes along, it is still official. But that being said, when they go through and write these articles for the Galactapedia, they take from articles that are previously written. Generally none of this is new, but what they do is they paraphrase a little bit, but also add a little bit of clarification, and additionally sometimes minor changes are made. And so this is the most official, most up-to-date lore about different things. And so usually what they'll do is they'll cover a star system or two, have one full-length article, and then a few small articles to go with it. So the Ark TAYAC system. So the Ark is a human-built construction in the TAYAC system, a giant space station that's meant to be a repository of knowledge, interspecies knowledge. It was built sort of as like a gesture of goodwill post Xi'an human, UEE Cold War, in order to share knowledge and information in a gesture of openness. And eventually you'll be able to visit it in game, but the Galactapedia will be in game probably like via your Moby Glass, and that's how you'll be able to access information about different things as well as add to it. Welcome to this month's Galactapedia Update Roundup. This month we do a deep dive on the Midas fish, visit the Kalis system, or Kalis, take a look at the Talon, Talon Shrike, Corsair, Valkyrie, and Lynx, visit the University of Retor, and meet Elroy Cass. Join the Spectrum thread for any discussion or feedback. And those Spectrum threads are often good to follow because you will see people asking questions. Sometimes there's clarifications that are made. They clear up any misunderstandings. Usually it's Sherry answering questions. She's the archivist, and she's pretty awesome. So the Midas fish is the first article, the full-length article. The Midas fish is actually like a hanger flare item. So if you have been around since way back when, like me, oh, there's the AC kicking off. Okay, hopefully the AC isn't too loud. I apologize. It's just it's a very warm, humid day here in San Antonio, and so I've got the AC on. Not trying to keep it too cold, but just enough that I'm not like sweating. So yeah. The Midas fish. So if you are a old backer, especially, I don't remember how these came about, but like there's just an if you've been around for a long time, you have a ton of hanger flare, especially if you've been a subscriber. I've been a subscriber since being a subscriber was a thing, and so I just have, if you look at my inventory, I have pages and pages of hanger flare, and that includes a fish tank with a bunch of different fish. I even have these. I think it's the Thorshoe is the name, Thorshu, Thorshoe crab. As well as a bunch of fish to go into my fish tank. And when we had nothing but the hanger module, you could place the fish tank and just, run around your hangar, look at your ships, look at your fish tank. So eventually when we have persistent, I don't know if it'll be persistent hangars or if we have to wait for personalized hangars or personal hangars to have that stuff back in game again. But it is in game in your inventory now, whereas it wasn't up until very recently. I think with 3.18 is when that was reintroduced. So let's take a look at the article about the Midas fish. Come on, internet. There we go. Alrighty. Now check my bandwidth real quick. Make sure we're doing good. Right on. Almost no drop frames. Bandwidth is still in the green. Okie dokie. Cool. So, the Midas fish. And I'm going to make this full screen. That way you guys don't have to look at my bookmarks and everything. Austin Amber. It's good. I like it. So, the Midas fish is an aquatic animal indigenous to the planet of Castle, Goss 2, in the Goss system, United Empire of Earth. Prized by aquarium enthusiasts for its golden color morph, the Midas fish is a protected species on its homeworld and is sometimes poached. A breeding program to replenish their numbers, overseen by Castle's Governor's Council, has been underway since Standard Earth year 2936. Oh, okay, so they are very prized, and I have them. Description: the Midas fish vary from large to small and have one dorsal fin, 4 triangle-shaped pectoral and ventral fins, and an indented tail fin. All Midas fish are protandrous or born male. Oh, interesting. When they reach around 7 Earth years of age, larger males will change sex, becoming female. Oh, what an interesting fact. Coloration is widely varied, with most wild Midas fish being mixed gray and white with black-tipped tail fins. Pardon me. And a gold streak at the corner of both eyes. Pink, orange, white, and black specimens have also been observed. The highly sought gold color morph, characterized by shimmering gold scales streaked with white, exists in nature in small frequencies. Its prevalence in the hobbyist trade is a product of many generations of selective breeding. Behavior and ecology. Usually, Midas fish live in small groups around the warm ocean reefs of Castle, consisting of one large female and a mature male, along with a few non-breeding immature males. If the female dies, then her reproduction partner will change sex, and one of the other males in the group will mature and become her mate. They are herbivorous and spend most of their time grazing on seagrass or using their powerful jaws to crush and ingest pieces of algae-coated coral. The polyps, along with any coral particulates, pass harmlessly through their digestive systems. When it is time to breed, the female will lay eggs in a sheltered area and the breeding male will fertilize them. As the eggs mature over a period of about 1 week, the group of fish will take turns guarding them from potential predators until they hatch. The fry will disperse after another week of being guarded. They breed yearly, early in their local warm season. Midas fish are endangered on Castle. This is partially due to the development of resorts near their habitats, but largely due to overhunting to supply the pet trade. The capture and trade of wild Midas fish was banned on Castle in Standard Earth Year 2927 and in the UEE at large in 2934. Thanks to this ban and Castle's Golden Touch repopulation project, the Midas fish's numbers have been steadily rising and are expected to reach a non-threatened level in the late 2960s. Captive bred Midas fish remain legal to own and trade. So, oh, hey, it's Nick. What's going on? How are you this evening, bud? Good to see you. The thing that I can think about with the Midas fish, and this podcast is lore equals gameplay, so I always try to relate as many things as I can back to things that are gameplay related or things that we will interact with in game. And I have to wonder if we already have multiple fish and like the Thorshoe crabs that will go in your fish tanks in game. I wonder if being able to trade in different fish for your fish tank will be a thing, in order to satisfy collectors. Because the one thing that Paul Astropub, the Astropub, always talks about is the end game of any MMO is fashion. Well, along with fashion is also customizing the things that you own, and that's one of the I think one of the big draws to Star Citizen is that where the potential for customization is far greater than just about any other game ever. In that you'll have your ships, and you'll be able to customize your ships from the exterior to the interior, placing things on the walls and putting things on shelves, blah blah blah. You'll be able to customize your personal hangar, your hab. We'll have apartments that you can buy. If you build an outpost or a homestead, you'll be able to customize that. You can customize your character, wear all sorts of different clothes and armor, and customize your weapons. And so one of the things that I think would be kind of interesting is to be able to, trade in pets, and especially if you get Midas fish, it might be a very difficult thing in order to get have a mating pair of Midas fish, and maybe having a mating pair of Midas fish will give a percent chance over time roll for reproduction and making more Midas fish. And hopefully if you've got 2 gold ones and they're breeding, they will be able to make more of them, and you can sell those or use those to trade for other things that you would like to collect, to put in your hangar, put in your outpost, that sort of thing. And people come to visit and they're like, oh wow, you have Midas fish, where did you get those? Well, let me tell you. And that kind of gameplay it makes things different and interesting versus just run around, shoot, bang, bang, bang. It's makes it a much more social and life in space sim versus just space sim type thing. Hey, it's Nick says, doing good, muscle sore from workout, but tomorrow is a lighter day, so I will be happy. Yeah, I went and got in a workout before the podcast, and obviously I showered because my shirt's all dry. But I think I'm coming down with a cold because I've got that like tickle in the back of my throat, and it's kind of sore. Not too bad or anything yet, but I'm like, oh great, I'm going to wake up tomorrow feeling even worse. And I was working out, and I was able to get through my workout. And what I've been doing at the end of my workout is I'll go on the treadmill and I'll walk uphill for 30 minutes at a pretty brisk pace, just to get my heart rate way up and burn a ton of calories. And I was out of steam by the time I got done doing all my different lifts and everything that I do in my circuit. I just had no steam left for doing the walk. And so I was like, yep, I'm definitely fighting a cold. And so I'm treating it with some Zicam, hoping that I can cut it short because I'm supposed to go home on Monday and finally see my family after 2 months, and I don't want to bring home a cold to my 18-month-old son and my wife. But I'm also treating it with Austin Amber. So when in Austin, drink local beer. Yeah, hey, it's Nick. I totally agree with you. Yeah, I'm really hoping that I can kick this really fast and not go home sick and not give to my family, because I only get to go home for 5 days, and then it's off to another course for another month. So I don't want to be sick, period, but I certainly don't want to bring it home to my family. But yeah, there's so many ways that you can customize the things that you own in game. And it's incentive for people to go and exploring and to trade with other people, and to go to the different locations to buy and sell that people might otherwise skip over, in order to look for things to collect, things that interest them, things that show their personality when somebody comes aboard your ship, or stops by your hangar before you guys go do a job, or if they visit you at your outpost or your homestead. That's the kind of going the extra mile that I really appreciate from CIG and what they're building, that most games these days absolutely do not. So let's continue with the Galactapedia, and then we're going to take a look at the Kalis system. So I'll open up this article real quick, and let's see. Before that, let's find the Kalis system. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Let's see. So if I click this, it's going to take me into the system. Oh, never mind. It's right there. That's what I want. So, yeah, I didn't want to go into the system yet, because before I do that, I always try to find the system on the star map, so that way you guys can see where it is in relation to other systems, as well as look at the sizes of the jump points that are connecting it. So CIG has basically not told us how the size of the jump points are going to factor in to travel between systems. They've made little mentions here and there just in theory crafting, but we don't have anything hard to tell us why. So really, it's just good information to be aware of, but it's not going to be impactful for us for quite a while. That being said, a lot of people think that the star map hasn't been updated since it was released in 2016. That is not correct. I did a big old segment on it early on in the Pathfinders podcast, because what I had found was that the star system sizes on the star map did not correlate with the ones that were listed on SC Tools, the wiki. And so what I did is I went through the wiki, what were they called? The wiki records of when things were updated, and I could see that the different systems on the wiki hadn't been updated since they were first added back when the star map, basically, not long after the star map came out. But then I was able to find on Spectrum a post from a person who isn't active anymore. At least I don't think so. But they were able to somehow, via some sort of script, track the changes made to the Ark Starmap that were going on under the hood. And it turned out that there were pretty frequent updates for the first, I think it was 2 to 3 years, regarding all sorts of things on the Ark star map. Planets were moved, star systems were, grew and shrank in size. Jump points were moved on the star map and changed in size. The size of planets, asteroid belts. Oh, Elgato, dang you. Thanks for the heads up. Appreciate it. I don't know why it does that. It just, every now and then, it'll just say, you know what, I'm going to take a smoke break. I'll be back in 15. And even though it's still running and I can open it and it will still show my screen. Give it a second to load back up. Because obviously you guys want to see my face, right? Let's see. Okay, cool. Looks like it fixed it. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting because not only was I able to find out that lots of changes, all sorts of different changes had happened in the first 2 or 3 years since the release of the star map, but then from what was recorded of those changes, I went through and I made a spreadsheet for every star system, just looked at the size, and I was able to find that some star systems had changed since the most recent recorded change by that person from their Spectrum post. So I don't know how much has changed since, I think it was 2018. End of 2018 is when the last post was made. And so, it's been 5 years. I don't know when these changes occurred. I don't know how much has changed, but there have been more changes just in the things that I looked at, which was just the size of star systems since their last recorded size at the most recent, noted change in 2018. And so that's what I thought it was kind of interesting that they were still updating it and they weren't telling us what they're doing. There wasn't any patch notes for the Ark star map. So interesting stuff. But so yeah, obviously here we are in the Stanton system right here, and there is Pyro, soon TM. And then the Callus system, where'd it go? Is right here. How do I... I don't want this anymore. I want it to go back to... There we go. Yeah, so the Callus system is right here, and it has a large jump point going to Bremen and a large jump point going to Oso. And Oso itself is connected to Pyro by a small jump point. So technically, Callus is 1, 2, 3 jumps from Stanton. Via the medium jump point from Stanton to Pyro, the small jump point from Pyro to Oso, which is another developing system, and then a large jump point from Oso to Callus. And Callus is actually apparently a developing planet. So let's read more about the Callus system. But first, let's get into it. See, and that's one of the other things that I like to do is I like to, before I get into the system, normally when the star map is working, you can right click and you can see the size of the system. And so obviously we can't do that because the star map is bugged right now. But the interesting thing is from here out, you can see that there's a lot of what almost looks like particulate. And it makes me wonder if there's a lot within the system as far as little stellar bodies. So let's see. So let's see what the wiki says. Now, we don't know. I don't know if this has been updated. It says the system size is 20 AU, which is larger than Pyro. Pyro is actually 13 as of last count on the star map. So I don't know if this is updated or if it's been changed. I know what I should do. I'll do it another time. Next time I'll have to bring up my Google Sheet with all the system sizes. But yeah, so it's potentially a very good size star system. So let's zoom in here and we'll work our way from in to out. So the Calais system is an unclaimed, developing planetary system in its accretion phase that consists of a G-type main sequence star, a protoplanet, 5 terrestrial planets, a gas giant, an ice giant, a dwarf planet, and 2 asteroid belts. This is a very full system. Discovered in 2921, so it's only been known to us for 32 years by the staff of the OB station Chimera in the OSO system, which is next door. And the OSO system is also a developing system. It has a sentient species on one of the planets. But anyway, the Calais system was placed under the protection of the Fair Chance Act despite a lack of sentient life in order to give scientists an opportunity to study a planetary system in its infancy. In 2935, over 100 people fell victim to a scammer selling land deeds in the system under the misconception that the planets would take only a few more years to finish growing. It is estimated that the system's growth will not conclude for another 1,000,000 standard Earth years. Nick says, my guess is the particulate could just be UX decision to better track the rotations you make in the star map. Yeah, it could be. I just noticed that some systems have a lot more than others. And so it makes me wonder if it's something that's just randomized or if it's something that's put in there in order to give a feel for the system because it's in its accretion phase. And so when it's in its accretion phase, that means, the system is... all the planetary bodies are growing and they're pulling in the masses and the gases in order to form their bodies and their atmospheres. And so I wonder if that might be playing into why it looks that way. We may never know. But it's interesting that, it's a fair chance system, but there's no life there. It's a fair chance system just so scientists can observe the system developing and becoming an actual system without interference by Shubin Interstellar coming in and just strip mining the whole place. I don't know if it's a little detail, Nick, that I've noticed. It's like, well, some systems have more particulate matter than others, and I don't know why. I just think it's kind of cool looking. But yeah, so even within the system, there's a lot of stuff. So let's look at the first planet, Calais 1. I like the little descriptions. Potentially in danger. Makes me think of the little meme with, what is it, Ralph Wiggum? I'm in danger. All right, so Calais 1, in pretty close to the star, and... the other thing that's always interesting to note is a lot of people look at the planet, the star systems from on top, and so they don't see that sometimes some of the planets have an orbit that is off the elliptic, and sometimes the planets are just all on the elliptic. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but it's an interesting thing to note. But one thing that is definitely interesting and different from star system to star system is the location of the jump points. And some of them are more towards the interior of the system, and sometimes you have ones that are more towards the exterior, and they are varying degrees off the ecliptic of the system. So it's like, oh, okay, the Calais Oso jump point is really close to Calais 1. Well, not so much. It's actually way down there. We don't know how far that is, but it's definitely not as close as if it was just like that. So, Calais 1 is a protoplanet in the developing Calais system, a small mass of matter. It is believed that this protoplanet will eventually coalesce with nearby planetesimals and become a planet. Recent changes in its orbit have pushed it closer to its sun, leading to speculation that it may break apart if this migration continues. Interesting. So, if you are watching right now or you're watching later, there is a very good chance that you know of Paul Astropub Shelley, and you are a fan of his, watch his content often. He's a good friend, and I totally enjoy talking with him and being a part of his community. And one thing he's always commented on is what exploration is. Do you like maps? And I think that he's pretty much spot on in his assessment of what exploration is going to be in terms of updating maps and getting more up-to-date information, as well as going and scanning different areas and exploring areas, looking for resources, and selling the location of that resource to someone who may use it. But the Callus system, being a developing system, is a very good example of a place where you could go exploring for money, because the OB Station Griffin is way out here, and there's all these different things that they're going to want information on, these scientists who are watching the system develop. And I would be willing to bet that you can go there and get contracts to go to any number of places within the system and get more up-to-date information for them, do some detailed scans, go visit the planets, and see how they're forming, and look at the asteroid belts and what they're made up of. All this sort of information would be valuable to the scientists, and they would reward you with obviously probably UAC, as well as reputation. So let's close Callus 1. And we'll look at Callus Belt Alpha, the next thing out from Callus 1. The Callus Belt Alpha is an asteroid belt in the developing Callus system, densely packed with planetesimals. So things, gases and material, larger asteroids, things that come together in order to form a planet. Densely packed with planetesimals, asteroids, dust, and gases, matter in the belt is constantly pulled out of orbit by the larger bodies forming on its outer edges. The unusually high amount of motion this activity creates poses a hazard for any ships passing through the area. So, lore equals gameplay. They are telling you that this is a navigational hazard. And so I would not be surprised if while you are in the system, or if you go to this system, because of this navigational hazard, that there would be intermittent rescue missions or repair missions in order to go out and find somebody who is navigating the belt on their way to go explore Callus 1, or go to the belt and rescue somebody who was scanning the belt and studying it and got knocked around by some material or an asteroid, because that is totally gameplay that you would have associated with the lore surrounding this belt. If all this stuff is bouncing around, moving around, and is a navigation hazard, you're likely to have people calling for help because their ship is damaged and they can't get it repaired, because their ship was damaged and they were injured, those sorts of things. The other thing is you also may have salvage contracts in these systems of, hey, this ship was damaged beyond repair and the crew was evacuated, but we want to remove the ship from the asteroid belt, prevent it from being a further hazard. So it's a high risk mission, so we're going to pay extra. So go to these coordinates, scan for the wreck. It should be around here, and then and then you can salvage it and take what you want from it. Just an example of potential gameplay in the Callus Belt Alpha. It's also, it would be illegal to mine in Callus Belt Alpha. You should not do it, because that would be illegal and against the law, and we do not condone that behavior on this podcast. So, potentially, even though it's illegal, potentially there could be some very valuable metals and minerals to be found and mined there, with very little potential competition. But you don't want to do that, because that would be illegal. Anyway, moving on to Callus 2, growing large. Callus 2 is a terrestrial planet in the developing Callus system, while it shares an orbit with Callus 3. Oh, interesting. It passes slightly closer to its sun during perihelion and has thus been designated as the system's second planet. It's kind of cool that they're on the same orbit, or very nearly so. As it pulls in material from the nearby asteroid belts, it may eventually become massive enough to subsume its sibling planet. Oh, interesting. Boy, that would be a pretty interesting event to see. It is currently somewhat smaller than Callus 3, but may grow much larger given enough time. And this is, people will call it fluff. This is really, this is just fluff. It's interesting lore. But this is one of those things where as this continues to occur over time, the scientists are going to want updated information about the changes in its orbit, how much mass it has been accumulating. Those are different things that you can expect from the exploration type missions that you would get. You have to go out to Callus 2 and get an updated scan of the planet, or the area around it, in order to get information that the scientists at the wherever want. Nick says planet impact in Star Citizen. I don't know if we'll ever get like planet-sized impact in Star Citizen. I feel like that would be a very unique event, although super cool. But what I do want to see is in the recent Star Citizen Live, where they talked about mining and tractor beams and salvage. Oh gosh, I always forget that dev's name. He's got the big dark beard and the long dark hair. Really interesting guy, but he talked about how there's nothing that is stopping them from making asteroids that move around. Right now they are static objects. They won't move, even if you run into them with a Bengal. But that is not intended to continue. Eventually the asteroids are going to be able to be moved around. They're going to be moving around themselves within the asteroid belt. You'll be able to use your tractor beams on, say, an Argo SRV to move them. But it'd be really interesting, because there's a lot of asteroid belts that have been described, kind of like the one here, where it's very volatile with the things moving around in them. And I want to see that, where the asteroids are moving around within the asteroid belt and crashing into each other and breaking apart into different pieces, and creating all sorts of navigational hazards. That sort of thing is extremely cinematic. It's something that, I'm sure everybody who's watching this right now and watching it later has probably seen that sort of thing happen in some, in a different sci-fi TV show or movie, where ships are having to fly through an asteroid belt and the asteroids are crashing together. It's even been in some of the Star Citizen ship commercials. So that's the kind of thing I would like to see. Whether we'll ever get planets, probably not. But large asteroids, yeah, I could see that happening, and I could see that totally ruining your day. All right, so Callus 3, again, growing larger. Here, we'll close the Callus system one. Come on, interwebs. Refresh. Hotel internet, don't fail me now. Callus 3 is a terrestrial planet in the developing Callus system that shares an orbit with another planet, Callus 2. More massive than its sibling planet, it is also accruing matter at a higher rate and is expected to continue increasing in size. Observing scientists believe that it may one day grow large enough to subsume Callus 2. Well, who's going to subsume who? Who's going to get bigger? Who's going to eat who? Who's the Pac-Man and who's the little ghost? All right, moving on to the next one. Callus 4, Adolescent Earth. Before we go on that one, so let's look at these orbits. So here's Callus 1, and then here's Callus Belt Alpha, and then here's Callus 2 and Callus 3. They're on opposite sides of each other in their orbit. I know nothing about astrophysics or anything like that. I wonder if they're both, pulling in stuff from this asteroid belt and say this asteroid belt, by pulling in more matter, is that going to cause them to slow down in their orbit potentially? And that's how one will run into the other. The, smaller, faster one will eventually run into the larger one. I don't know anything about how that works, but it's interesting to think about. And so there's Callus 3, and there's Callus 4 in the green band. That's this band right here. So that's the sort of habitable zone, just inside the orbit of Callus Belt Beta. And then it's also near, the Callus Bremen jump point is near the orbit for Callus 4. Okay. So, Callus 4 is the fourth planet from the Sun of the developing Callus system. Due to its position in the green band, current size, and robust volcanic activity, it seems to be evolving into an Earth-like planet. Survey teams on OB Station Griffin monitor Callus 4 around the clock, and unpiloted drones are constantly collecting data. A great deal of valuable information has been discovered thanks to this long-term study. However, the planet is not expected to finish forming for many thousands of years. Again, exploration, and this one, they're serving up the information of what you'd be doing on a silver platter. So the survey teams on OB Station Griffin monitor Callus 4 around the clock. So they're going to be sending out surveys, survey ships to go out and scan the planet on a very regular basis. These are going to be the missions that, they're always available in order for you to get a little bit of UEC, get some rep with, whoever the organization is that is responsible for the science teams on the OB station. OB being observation. The going out and checking out Callus 4 would be the sort of lower level mission within this system in order to get the reputation, in order to be able to take on the more difficult missions, things that need better scanners or are more dangerous to go to. But the interesting mention is OB Station Griffin monitor Callus 4 around the clock, and unpiloted drones are constantly collecting data. So, one thing that came out, I forget which Galactapedia update it was last year, but there's a Galactapedia article on research drones. I'll let that sink in for a second. When Nazarus and I did we had a big spectrum pulse on drones and drone gameplay and all the ships that have drones and what we know about them. We did that last year. I want to say it was last August or something. Couldn't find anything on research drones. Can kind of assume that those are potentially the ones that could come on your Carrack, but I don't remember ever seeing anything in the Carrack's information that those were specifically research drones. But the research drones are for, it specifically says in the article, to be used by people with, essentially they said if you have enough reputation with the UEE or probably a scientific organization, you can use the research drones in order to go down to the surface of protected planets, like the one, the one in Oso that has the sentient species living on it, in order to obtain samples and do exploration, on the planet without having to set foot on it. And so I could totally see those research drones being used in situations like this, going down to the surface of Callus 4. And instead of just doing a scan from orbit, you could send your research drones down to take a look at the volcanic activity in greater detail, in order to get that information. And that would be, a more specific contract or mission that you could do. Requires specific equipment. Not everybody can do it, because you have to have a ship capable of using drones, and you have to have the right drones. But that would be very interesting exploration gameplay that could be potentially very rewarding in terms of UEC and reputation with different like scientific and research organizations that are interested in that information. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. I think it's the Asteroid Belt. Yep, Callus Belt Beta, Planetary Remnants. Gotta take a sip of my beer. The Callus Belt Beta is the second asteroid belt from the sun of the developing Callus system, less dense than its sibling belt. Okay. It is primarily composed of dust grains and small asteroids that may be remnants from the formation of Callus 4 and Callus 5. In 2931, a group of art smugglers from Bremen, so Bremen is connected to Callus by a large jump point, attempted to conceal themselves in the dust of the Beta Belt before being apprehended by a UEE Army patrol ship. Very interesting. I'm going to screenshot this really quick, because I'm going to have to send it to Paul and Tira Kell, because we are planning on doing a episode regarding the UEE Army and what their function is, because we have like next to no lore about the UEE Army, and we have just gobs of information about the Navy and quite a bit of information about the Marines. But that's interesting that the UEE Army have their own patrol ships, and so we've been speculating that the UEE Army basically does internal defense and security. And so it sounds like one of their jobs is protecting developing systems and the planets and species within them. But that's it's kind of interesting, though, because they talk about how you could you can use places like this to conceal yourself and to hide if you're a smuggler or you're running from the law. And because the Callus system is sort of off the beaten path, between goes from Bremen to Callus to Oso to Pyro, potentially that could be a very good smuggler's route. You just have to be wary of the Army patrol ships that would be in Callus and Oso. But those Army patrol ships might not be very significant in number versus going through a UEE controlled system with more regular Navy patrols. Something to think about, a potential option for that. Using systems like this to hide in, or to make your way through in order to shake a tail. All right, so Callus 5 may one day have moons. All right, so there's Callus 4, and there's Callus Belt Beta, and here's Callus 5. Looks like it's just outside the green zone. Oh, and the other thing that's kind of interesting, you can look at the planets, and the planets have different art styles, but this one's kind of cool because it looks like it has a ring around it, and I can't click and zoom in because the star map isn't working correctly. But I think that's what that's supposed to be. I can't remember. Whoa. Oh gosh. What have I done? Where did it go? Oh man, the star map is so borked right now. There we go. Whew. Started to get nauseous. All right, so there's Callus 5 right there. Ah, dang it, Elgato, really? Really, Elgato? Hold on, give me just a second. Let me restart the camera. That's weird. Nick, can you do me a favor, since you are listening and active in chat? The announcement from my bot talking about StackUp just posted, and I can see it in OBS, and I can see it on the stream, but I can't see it. I'm watching Twitch via the app on my tablet, and I can't see it there. Can you see it? It's an announcement on the chat on desktop. Okay, I wonder why the tablet isn't showing it. That's really odd. Huh. Weird. I don't know why that does that. All right, camera should be back up. Okay. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. Callus 5 is a terrestrial planet in the developing Callus system, the fifth planet from its sun. It lacks geological activity and appears to have reached the final stages of its formation. It is surrounded by a wide disk of planetesimals and dust that are likely to be remains from its earlier stages of growth. Two especially large objects growing in the disk may possibly be coalescing into moons. Again, part of the theme of this, the planet itself seems to be in its final stages of formation, so going and checking out the planet. But I think the Obi station, was it Griffin? The scientists and researchers there would definitely be interested in the monitoring the growth of those moons in that disk around the planet. And so going to check those out and scan that disk for its contents and to just learn about it. But yeah, this is definitely going to be an exploration-filled system. Callus 6, not carbon neutral. Let's see. So there's Callus 5, which you just talked about. Here's Callus 6 out here. Okay, and there's 7 down there. Callus 6 is a terrestrial planet in the developing Callus system and is the sixth planet from its sun. Covered in an ocean of molten rock, it is still in an early stage of formation, and its crust is not expected to cool down enough to allow for the formation of continents for many millennia. The high amount of carbon present on the planet has led scientists to believe that when it finishes forming, it will be devoid of water. Interesting. All right, and wait a minute. There's more? Oh, geez. Whoa, yeah, it is a lot bigger than I thought. Oh, man. Okay, so there's Callus 7. Ooh, those are way out there. I wish the star map worked. Callus 7 is the seventh planet from the sun of the Callus system, a young gas giant. It formed in the outer parts of the system during the star's stellar nebula phase, where it collected enough mass to attract huge amounts of hydrogen and helium gas over the relatively rapid period of about 200 years. It later migrated to its current position, possibly subsuming or displacing other objects in its path. In 2952, United Empire of Earth Army officials filed a request to open a refueling station over Callus 7, citing the cost of importing fuel in the late stage of the planet's development. So it says in 2952 they filed a request. Obviously, that was last year. The question is, has construction started on building a refueling station in orbit of Callus 7? Or are they still having to go there and scoop fuel in order to obtain it? Or is fuel having to be imported? So that's one thing. There's multiple avenues for this to go. If they filed a request to open a refueling station and it's not built yet, that means there could be cargo contracts to deliver the construction materials, maybe to a station that's under construction, or to the observation station to deliver it there, where they'll be eventually delivered to the construction point. That also means that if they're having to import fuel and it's very costly, you could get contracts with your Starfarer in order to transport fuel to the OB station for the UE Army to use. And it could be potentially pretty lucrative to take fuel there and sell it to them, or to transport it under contract to them. The other thing is, if you have your Starfarer, and maybe you have enough rep with the UAE, they'll let you come into the system and go get fuel from Callus 7, go scoop fuel from there and bring it back to the OB station for the Army to use. There's a lot of different potential for logistics type gameplay associated with what they wrote here in regards to Callus 7 and the UAE Army. Callus 8. Callus 8 is the 7th planet from the sun of the developing Callus system. An ice giant, it is composed of hydrogen, helium, and volatile icy compounds. Pardon me. In contrast to its neighboring planet Callus 7, which began its life in the outer reaches of the Callus system, it most likely formed closer to its sun and later migrated outwards to its current location beyond the frost line. One leading hypothesis suggests that during Callus 7's journey inward, it may have displaced Callus 8. Again, more exploration stuff, but it's these last sentences that they talk about are things where I wonder if they might have you investigate certain parts of the star system, in between planets, to look for information that could prove or disprove this hypothesis. Whenever I see things like that in regards to these different star systems, to me that is definitely a point for exploration gameplay, in terms of, okay, here is a contract to go scan this area for evidence, disproving or proving this hypothesis related to the lore. Lore equals gameplay. And probably in most instances, a more introductory type contract, unless it's in a environmentally dangerous area that's poses a risk to your ship, or maybe there's it's a unlawful system with a crime and pirates, but just going to an area in space that might be related to proving out a hypothesis and scanning the area for information. Callus 9, not a giant at all. There it is, way out here. So it's actually out past the orbit of OB Station Griffin. Callus 9 is a dwarf planet in the developing Callus system and is the 9th planet from its sun. Frigidly cold, its surface is marked with active cryovolcanoes that spew ice and water into the ammonia-rich atmosphere. The planet came to fame in the 2943 Tanya Oriel story, Lost Generation, where it appeared as the final resting place of a passenger from the missing long-haul colony ship Artemis. And remember, the Lost Generation series of stories are in fiction. So it is meant to be a fictional story written within the fiction of Star Citizen. It's sort of like a pleasure reading for the people of the Star Citizen universe. But it is in fiction. It's in fiction, historical fiction, because the Artemis is actually a colony ship that was lost, and people have been searching for centuries. And so it's a story that's, it's a fictional story about an actual historical thing within the Star Citizen universe. Yeah, fiction within fiction. OB Station Griffin faced an influx of tourists wanting to visit the site, not knowing that the story was fictional. I wonder if that's something they still have to deal with. Like if you go visit OB Station Griffin, will you hear like NPCs dressed as tourists on the station with their wild lines, be like, "Oh, I came here to see Callus 9 and the site of the final resting place of the long lost passenger from the Artemis," and some army specialist has to in a droll voice, "No, ma'am, that isn't correct. That's fiction. That story is fiction. It's not real. There's nothing there. I promise. Please return to your ship and depart the system. Thank you." Blah blah blah. OB Station Griffin. So this is the last article for the Callus system. OB Station Griffin is an observation post operated by the United Empire of Earth Army in the developing Callus system. Located near the Callus Oso jump point, the station is the system's main operational hub and is a required checkpoint for all who wish to visit. All deliveries to Callus are routed through Griffin to ensure that Fair Chance Act protocols are followed. It is staffed with a mix of UEE, Army personnel, and researchers engaged in the study of developing planets. So again, very bluntly saying that all deliveries to Callus are routed through Griffin. So if you are hauling to the Callus system in order to bring, scientific or research supplies, or just generic foodstuffs, whatever, whatever these, the soldiers there as well as the researchers might need, this is where you're going to be delivering to. And potentially, if you are delivering further into the system, to maybe maybe there will be NPC endeavors, in the long future. Where you can, you have to check in here, you have to go through customs, they scan your ship and your cargo, and then you're allowed to proceed to the Endeavor that's further in the system that is doing research, and you can dock with the Endeavor and drop off your cargo. But, there's going to be plenty of reasons to visit OB Station Griffin when you're going to the Callus system for whatever reason. And so that is it for the Callus system and the Ark Starmap. So let's read about the University of Retor, and then we've got a few articles on vehicles, and then Elroy Cass, who is a celebrity. The University of Retor is a public institute of higher learning located on Reese, Retor 3 in the Retor system, UEE. A research university, it offers a wide range of subjects and invests heavily in research and development. It was founded in 2389 by a group of scholars who left the University of Persei following a dispute over the low salaries of adjunct professors. Undergraduates at the school take 4 courses per semester and are required to engage in experiential education, which can include civic engagement, hands-on professional engagement, and 1 or more semesters studying abroad. So I don't think it's an accident that they include the article on the University of Retor in the same Galactapedia update that they included the Callus system, where there's a lot of research and exploration going on, a lot of scientific minds. I think that one of the things that you might see for like long distance for NPC transport would be taking NPCs from the Retor system, students and researchers, and transporting them, or a group of them, to places like the Callus system or the Oso system. Their final destination being an observation station in one of these protected systems, or another place of research, so they can do that research. And I think that would be a very viable NPC transport contract that you could see. Have them going back and forth. Oh, they've completed their semester abroad at OB Station Griffin, and now you need to transport, pick them up and take them back to the University of Retor. I also think that this will be a place where you could go to get exploration type contracts. Be like, okay, you have enough reputation with this particular university, and you can go there to speak to the NPCs and to get special contracts to go do different things throughout the verse. Fly out, go there, check in, get the contract, figure out what you need to do, make your plans and get your supplies, and then fly off in your character to go do the contract. Let's close the star map. The Valkyrie, my favorite ship. Literally, my favorite ship. The Valkyrie is a dropship spacecraft manufactured by Anvil Aerospace. Designed to carry personnel in and out of combat zones, it features 20 jump seats and gun racks, and is outfitted with manual turrets, remote-operated turrets, side door guns, and front-mounted guns. Its vehicle bay is capable of carrying multiple ground-based transports that can be launched from its ramp as needed in battle. Used exclusively by the military after it was first made in 2812, Anvil debuted a civilian version of the Valkyrie in 2948. So the Valkyrie has actually been around for quite a while, 140 plus years. And only recently have we gotten a civilian version to be used in civilian markets. And we already know there's gameplay surrounding the Valkyrie. It's in game, fun to fly. I love that ship. I think that there's a lot to be said about the use of the Valkyrie in the future with its VTOLs. If you aren't aware, there was a post made on Spectrum pretty recently. I tweeted about it. I think it was in the last month or two. With the development of the Santok Yai, they are developing the technology to allow for thrusters to rotate or change position dynamically based off of inputs, like a fly-by-wire system that says, okay, I want to strafe to the left, and with the Santok Yai, the thrusters will all orient to the right in order to push you to the left, versus just having fixed thrusters in a fixed position. Then these thrusters fire, but not these ones. That technology, that flight system that they're developing for the Santok Yai, once it's finished for the Santok Yai, they will work on developing that and modifying it as needed for, specifically in the post, they talked about the Terrapin. I forget what other ships, but basically anything with VTOLs that rotate already, like the Valkyrie, like the Terrapin. The Legionnaire is a good example. I think probably the Cuddy as well. And so that way you can be flying along with all your VTOL, because the Valkyrie has, its VTOLs are main engines, and you can be flying along like this. And then when you want to come, you fly along, and as you're, dropping in altitude, the VTOLs will rotate in order to give you some more lift as well as forward thrust until you want to come to a stop, and then they'll rotate forward and down and forward to slow you down and then bring you down like that. It's, if you go watch the Valkyrie commercial, you'll see the thrusters doing in the commercial what they're supposed to do. And it's the thrusters being able to do that is what makes it so that the Valkyrie can come screaming in, nose first down from orbit, and then at the as fast as possible to limit exposure time and risk to the craft, and the crew, and then at the last minute rotate the ship and the thrusters, and then come into a landing like that, and with the thrusters at full burn, slowing the ship down. There are a lot of heavy G-forces, but those G-forces, and this is something that I talk about in my boarding actions video. Stay tuned; it's going to be out soon. Well, North End Trooper, good to see you, bud. How are you doing? The Legionnaire is rumored to use acquired Vandal technology, which is from the Cleaver, which is the Vandal boarding craft. And the Cleaver is basically a torpedo with a Vandal inside of it that is shot into a target ship. It's fired, but it has its own main thruster and maneuvering thrusters. But it just flies like a torpedo, hits the target ship, buries itself into the target ship because it's pointy. It buries itself in there, cuts a hole, and then the Vandal drops out into the ship. Well, ostensibly the Cleaver and the Vandal have inertial dampening technology, so that way the Vandal that's inside the boarder doesn't just splat on the inside of the Cleaver. And that in theory is what allows the Legionnaire to perform what's called the KISS maneuver, where two Legionnaires will fly at full speed to hit towards each other, and then at the last possible second, their VTOL thrusters, all four of them, will rotate in the opposite direction and then bring them to a halt, very quickly, and then they kith, and touch noses with their little proboscises. And so my theory is that same we know that same technology from the Cleaver is used in the nail drop pods, which are able to fire a Marine from orbit to the surface in 90 seconds. But it's my belief that inertial dampening technology is also used in the Valkyrie in order to make it so that way Valkyries can do hot drops from orbit, rapidly come down as fast as possible, and then rotate, flip the VTOLs, and then brake, and then land and disembark from troops without the troops just passing out and being killed by the G-forces. Same with the pilot. And I think that's the difference between the drop seats that are on the Valkyrie, that are on the Legionnaire, versus what you would have in other ships. They're meant to do that. They're based off of Vandal tech. North End Trooper says, did I miss the Prospector lore? No, the Prospector is in the jump point, right? This month's jump point. And I'm just going through the Galactapedia update. Actually, you know what? We can do that, though. After I get done with the Galactapedia update, we'll open up the most recent jump point, right? It's this most recent one, and we'll check out the Prospector lore. I should start going through the jump points as well for Lore Equals Gameplay, since we're not getting new lore articles from the lore team. But yeah, a lot of good lore behind the Valkyrie, behind the Legionnaire, the Cleaver, the nails, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for the boarding actions video. There's a lot of good info in that. The Talon. Recreation of a historic Tavaran fighter. Sip of my beer. The Talon is a light fighter manufactured by Asperia, a replica of the historic Tavaran fighter designated Talon by UPE military during the First Tavaran War. The spacecraft features maneuverable phalanx-style shields that can be moved to protect vital points. And so some people have thought that the phalanx shields aren't going to be a thing, that they got retconned and going away. No, this is lore. This is the most up-to-date lore we have for Star Citizen right now. Still says it's going to be a thing. They've talked about it, how it's a system that they'll develop eventually. It's just not, a development priority. But the phalanx shields on the Talon and the Prowler are definitely going to be a thing. If you want to learn more about the failing shields, I'll be talking about the Prowler in my boarding actions video. In 2941, 3 partial hulls of Talons were discovered on Cabal 3, alongside a cache of other Tevaran artifacts that survived the purge that took place at the end of the Second Tevaran War, 2603 through 2610. Now, the story, the lore piece that surrounds the discovery of the Cabal system and the planet of Cabal 3 and the Tevaran cities and everything there that were abandoned is pretty interesting. Pardon. Asperia used these recovered hulls to create modern replicas, which they debuted at the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo in 2950. The Talon is a very cool ship. The other thing that'll be interesting is when they get around to, pardon me, when they get around to doing the ejection sequence thing, because the cockpit on the Talon is supposed to eject out of the ship when you versus you just popping out of the a door. Pardon me. Oh man, damn cold coming on. Hopefully it's just a cold, not COVID. The Talon Shrike. The Talon Shrike is a variant of the Talon light fighter manufactured by Asperia and is a replica of the historic Tevaran fighter designated Shrike by the UP military that was first observed in use during the latter years of the First Tevaran War, 2541 through 2546. The Shrike has a modified missile-focused configuration compared to the base Talon and is armed with internal missile racks to increase damage inflicted during hit-and-run attacks. Asperia consulted Tevaran and human historians to ensure that the modern reproduction of the Shrike was as authentic as possible. Such a cool image with the Talons and the Shrikes, zooming in from orbit down to the planet and conducting their hit and run strikes and strafing the ground and shooting missiles and stuff. The Lynx, coming out in 319. Northern Trooper says, for real, they need to add these plaques to the ships when they're at Invictus Launch Week and IAE. Really tie the lore of ships and locations to the player's experience. Yeah, I totally agree. Being able to, see more, I'm hopeful that, when you have the the Galactapedia on the Moby-Glass, and you do your scan of the area or you walk in, it will get little prompts and little things, AR markers for a Lynx will show up, and you'll be able to go over to it and use the radial menu to pull up the information on your augmented reality HUD, something like that. Plaques are cool too, but as well integrate these systems within the Moby-Glass and the tech that they're building. The Lynx is a luxury exploration vehicle developed by Robert Space Industries. The company adapted the Lynx from their existing Ursa rover to include alongside their Constellation Phoenix luxury model spacecraft. The Lynx drops some of the Ursa's armor and internal modularity in exchange for luxury fittings and general quality of life improvements. Internal modularity, you say? I wonder what that means. The Corsair, not intentionally made for pirates. The Corsair is a multi-crew expedition spacecraft. Going to explore the hulls of unsuspecting cargo haulers. The Corsair is a multi-crew expedition spacecraft manufactured by Drake Interplanetary. Capable of supporting a crew of up to 4 people, it is outfitted with living quarters that include a full kitchen and washroom facilities. A Drake ship with a bathroom. We should be so fortunate. Each Corsair comes with a cargo bay that it can accommodate a ground exploration vehicle, or up to 72 SCU of cargo, and is equipped with cannon mounts on the bow, a manual turret, wing-mounted cannons, missiles, and an aft-facing remote turret. The Corsair also features a perpendicular cockpit configuration in which the co-pilot is seated below the pilot. The Corsair is a pretty dang cool design. Normally, I mean, it's the wings are asymmetrical. The rest of the ship isn't. But normally the asymmetry doesn't do it for me. But the Corsair just, it's cool. It's got a lot of rule of cool going for it. Pardon me, I keep clearing my throat. Yeah, this. Oh gosh, better not be getting a bad cold. The last article for the Galactapedia update, and then I'll open up the jump point, and we'll just peruse that. Is on Elroy Cass. Elroy Cass, birth 2919, so it's 2953 now, so 34 years old. Elroy Cass is a human artist, actor, dancer, musician, and general celebrity known for his large-scale works that often incorporate sound, visuals, and live performance. The death of actor Jared Yildiz in 2944 after an overdose of neon he reportedly obtained aboard Cass's Constellation Phoenix marked an escalation in a series of personal struggles in the public eye. Already under scrutiny for a recent stint in a rehabilitation facility, the increased media attention led Cass to a public meltdown in which he attempted to set fire to his vacation home on Tangaroa, Helios 2. He is a fixture of the tabloid press for his large, frequent parties, substance abuse issues, over-the-top art pieces, lavish purchases, bombastic behavior, and various artistic endeavors. I'm not going to even speculate about how that could factor into gameplay unless somehow you get into Elroy Cass's good graces and you have to go retrieve just random things for him, the consignment missions, but it's I need you to bring these drugs. I bought this just really weird statue from the Banu and it's 6 jumps over. Go get it and bring it back to me. Here's 1 billion credits, for your troubles. That sort of weird thing. The other thing that I think would be kind of interesting is if you have an 890 jump and you build up enough reputation within the in-game celebrity community that specific celebrities will request you to take them on a voyage on your 890 jump, and you have to hit certain waypoints and stop there for them to view for a certain period of time in order to keep them happy and get paid. All right, that is it for the Galactapedia update for the month of April. Let's go to the subscriber vault, which is where the jump points are. So, if you are not a subscriber, and I know most people are not, I've been a subscriber since the dawn of the subscription service, and just because I don't mind throwing a little cash CIG's way in order for me to have easy access to everything in the vault, all the jump points, all sorts of other stuff. It's a little bit of money here, and I read all of these things. I look at all of these things, especially the images in the subscriber vault are very handy for B-roll images now that I'm making content. So, but if you ever want access to a jump point and you're having trouble getting a hold of it or finding a specific one, hop in my Discord or DM me on Twitter or something like that, and I will download it and send it to you. Sharing is caring. I don't mind whatsoever. If you're interested in the lore, I'm more than happy to help you get into it. So let's see. Is it the April jump point that has the Prospector lore in it? Let's open it up and take a look. No. Talks about the Bengal carrier some more. Pyrotechnic Amalgamated. Anvil Aerospace. Revealing Loreville. Oh, it was the Whitley's Guide. Now I know what you're talking about. I figured it out. Okay, cool. Let's go to Comlink. There we go. Whitley's Guide Prospector. Yeah, we'll check this out real quick, and then I gotta call it an evening because I have laundry to do, unfortunately, before I go back to training tomorrow morning. Cool image of the Prospector. Such a cool little ship. Just screams industry. And I like the way the thrusters work. You know, they've got these little ones up front and then the big ones in the back. But it's a cool design. I enjoy seeing it. I think it's a design that has withstood the test of time pretty dang well. So, the MISC Prospector. The development history. The MISC Prospector is the most famous and possibly most tortured project to come out of MISC High Industrial's infamous Project Cold Boot, an engineering team organized to develop additional revenue streams from existing MISC assets using limited resources. This is an in-lore explanation of how CIG designs ships and reuses assets in order to make it easier to design more ships and make them build them faster. We're getting the whole C. We already have the whole A. Making the whole B and the D and the E is not going to be some sort of big stretch of the imagination. And a lot of those assets, along with the ones from the Prospector and the Starfarer, will get updated and used when they make the Odyssey and the Endeavor later on as well. And that was my last beer too. I should have got more while I was out. Oh well. Pardon me. Development of the Prospector began in 2910 as an outgrowth of a review of the Freelancer Light Transport project. Having already seen success modifying the base Freelancer for both survey and fire suppression missions. Fire suppression? Like firefighting? MISC was keen to study even more unlikely uses for the chassis. To that end, MISC's management reluctantly agreed to write off 9 Freelancers, which were transferred to the Cold Boot team. 3 were complete and space tested, while the others were left in various stages of construction and shipped alongside their intended components. Best money-making ship in the verse. Yep, no, it's a winner, especially for if you're solo. The Cold Boot team began by spitballing potential roles for a purpose-built Freelancer variant, which ranged... I want to make this full screen. Which ranged from ordinary combat support drones. Haven't heard much of that. And we don't know what combat support drones mean. Could they be actual combat drones? Drones with weapons, or is support more literal, like the drones on the Aegis Vulcan, and that refuel, repair, rearm. To fire suppression spacecraft. From nearly 300 rough concepts, the team voted to divide into 3 design groups to pursue more advanced physical development of the top 3 options. The first was a business-oriented design dubbed the Free Minder, which was to be a secure data relay brain ship, so a data runner. The second project opted to angle for a military contract with an armored space-to-ground reconnaissance vehicle called the Observer. The third, and considered the most unlikely to go forward, was to be a dedicated mining ship nicknamed simply the Miner. Real creative. You'd think that CIG, with their naming conventions, could have come up with a name that they've already used like 5 different times. The mining ship was least likely to go forward for a very simple reason. In 2910, there were very few small mining ships. This was not for a lack of technology, but rather both terrestrial and asteroid mining were simply considered to be large-scale propositions and could only be profitable when funded by major corporations. This is in 2910. This is only 43 years ago in the in the lore for in the universe of Star Citizen. So small-scale mining and mining by individuals and small groups with small mining ships and things like the Rock has not been a thing for very long at all. It's really, if you're doing it now, it's still very much a niche. It should have been the 49er. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I'm actually where I am from in Northern California is basically like spitting distance from where the gold rush started. I've been there on school field trips numerous times. Let's see, where was I? In a world where 400-meter mining platforms could strip small asteroids in a matter of hours. So let's put that into context. Granted, time is sort of sped up in the verse. But when you think about the Orion and the rocks that it is going to be mining, those are what are considered small asteroids. These giant asteroids that dwarf a mole or a prospector, much larger. And in game time, in reality of Star Citizen, it would take hours for them to strip one of those large rocks. So in game, it's probably going to take you a while. It's not going to be, something that goes really quickly, like mining the small rocks that we do with the mole and the prospector. You're going to be sitting there for a while, working on these larger rocks, breaking them up into smaller and smaller pieces. So something to think about. The pace of mining with an Orion is not going to be the same as the pace of mining with a mole, and it's not going to be the same pace of mining, far different from what you do with a prospector. There is simply no thought that an individual operator would ever pursue mining. MISC was essentially co-opting the Roberts Space Industries common man approach to ship sales with a ship that had no proven audience. By 2914, the first two conversion attempts had petered out entirely. The Freeminder team proved unable to produce an effective prototype, with the Freelancer's internal space unsuited to shielding the number of system blades needed for the project. The Observer concept had proven spaceworthy in simulations, and a great deal of work had been done constructing the alternative transparent nose cone for the physical build, when word that the rumored ground reconnaissance contract had been withdrawn due to a shifting military budget. The incomplete prototype remained on display at MISC's Los Arenas laboratory for years and was eventually scrapped. Although the miner had proceeded in the physical prototype stage, its situation seemed equally dire. The first prototype, retroactively designated Prospector Proof of Concept Demonstrator A1, was an unpleasant and ungainly beast. The team found themselves unable to budget for custom manufactured mining equipment and was instead forced to adopt an off-the-shelf solution, the smallest size of a Dalen Cruise laserhead emitter, a component roughly the size of a Freelancer's entire cockpit. Rather than being integrated into the design, the emitter was nano-welded tandem to the cockpit and attached via 4 metal booms. This created an unwieldy spacecraft without the aerodynamics necessary to function predictably in an atmosphere. Initial test flights were conducted via carrier spacecraft, with the prototype miner being dropped into space close to asteroid targets. There we go. What the A1 technology demonstrator lacked in looks or handling, it made up for in functionality. Over the course of 26 flights conducted by MISC test pilots, the A1 racked up success in a number of areas considered necessary for the program to continue. These flights proved that the Freelancer's stock drive could power a mining apparatus, that the hull could be modified to load ore and other materials while in flight, and that with some practice, a trained pilot could very effectively conduct more delicate, high-value mining operations using the ship's thrusters. The prototype program continued with 4 of the Freelancer chassis ultimately being converted into increasingly advanced demonstrators, designated A2, A3, and B1. By the space trials for the final demonstrator, the B1, the mining attachment had instead been integrated into a large sheath astride the underside of the cockpit. The result was a mechanism that the pilot could very effectively maneuver, giving him the ability to make the kind of delicate mining maneuvers for which larger ships had to deploy specialized surface craft, or drones like the Orion. The management at MISC HI was elated at the prospect of joining the ranks of spacecraft manufacturers producing lucrative mining ships, and saw the potential for the ship to create a new market for independent mining crews, many of whom would lease these ships at extremely positive corporate rates of return. Of course. The board was ultimately so convinced that they removed the effort from Cold Boot entirely, funding the project and assigning a team of top engineers to develop it into a distinct design rather than a freelancer conversion. North End Trivia said, "Oh, those biggings are in 319. We found a couple Monday." Biggings? What biggings? What are you talking about? Explain. Over the next 8 years, MISC HI internal teams worked together on 2 projects. The Prime Design team focused on developing a unique freelancer-inspired hull that, while using many off-the-shelf parts, would be constructed ground up and organized to best support how they envisioned small-scale mining would be most effective. Meanwhile, air conditioning. Meanwhile, a handsomely funded research and development team focused on the biggest technological hurdle to the project, miniaturizing a mining array to the point that it could be stored within a small ship's fuselage while still giving it an effective energy output. To meet this task, MISC licensed the Dalen Cruise design and relentlessly cut down and miniaturized components in a painstaking multi-year process. The ship, now named the Prospector, began proper space trials in 2923 after an extended time in jump tunnel simulations. Live testing went extremely well, with only limited teething difficulties resulting from a late in-process software update. The base ship was ready for flight some 6 months before the first version of the drill was completed. So the initial test flights focused on handling and were flown with only a weighted simulation. Late in the year, the first mining assembly came off the line and delighted thousands of aerospace engineers by slotting into place aboard a Prospector hull and then immediately humming to life. Big rocks are in space are in 319. Oh, interesting. If you go mining again, you should grab some screenshots of bigger rocks that are mineable and drop them in the Discord. It'd be interesting to see how they compare. Let's scroll down. MISC unveiled the Prospector to the galaxy in what it called a special preview showing at the 2924 Intergalactic Aerospace Expo. The crowd reaction was harsh, with reviewers praising the design but strongly, and often cruelly, criticizing the existence of the ship in the first place. No one, went the refrain, would ever need such a specialist spacecraft. As a result, there was almost no interest from buyers at the show, and pre-orders for the next Freelancer immediately outshone the Prospector. Although MISC's management opted to continue the expensive planned 2925 model year rollout for the commercial model, many employees privately expressed doubts because of media's reaction. Where Robert Space Industries was given carte blanche to sell the dream with every new design, it seemed no one was willing to think of MISC in the same way. Sadly for MISC's stock prices, the media reaction was prophetic. Sales of the Prospector hit rock bottom shortly after launch and stayed there for 2 full years. Then came the Chessex Lode, a massive discovery of previously ignored materials on Farron II. News reports around the Empire reported on the Lode's discovery, the most valuable of the year, which had been made using precision instruments deep in a canyon of a planet that had been effectively ignored for years. Making the story all the more appealing was the fact that it was not Shubin Interstellar or another large mining outfit with the new new mineral claim. Instead, it was Chloe Raznick, owner and operator of one of the first 2925 MISC prospectors off the assembly line. She had made the legal purchase of several hundred parcels of former military ground testing area in the hopes of salvaging expended shells and claiming the small bounties on radioactive debris collection. In the process of surveying her lot, she discovered a deep chasm into which she navigated her prospector. The rest was history, and Raznick was an overnight sensation, charming the empire, impressing trillions. So a lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to estimate what the population of the UAE is. And we know it's in the trillions. There's 8 billion people on Earth right now? And a trillion is 1,000 billions? Yeah, kind of crazy to think about. That there's... What's that? If there's multiple trillions... the humanity's population 900 years in the future is 1,000 times, or nearly 1,000, potentially plus or minus 1,000 times that of what it is right now. It's pretty nuts when you think about it, and pretty crazy when you think about it. To think about how large institutions within the UEE are, how big the UEE actually is. How big the different branches of the military are, how big these mega corporations actually are. When mega corporations, have numbers of employees in the tens of thousands nowadays, mega corporations in the future would have populations in the millions, of employees. That's a lot of work for HR. Let's see. But it's so. This the part about the Chessex load is really interesting, because if you remember the quantum presentation where Tony Z showed off the discovery of somebody exploring a planet, scanning a planet, and coming across concentrations of minables and stuff. That's going to be what exploration is a lot of the time, is going and scanning planets, and asteroid fields, and asteroid belts, moons, looking for concentrations of resources that are economically viable to extract, and then selling that location. Because people seem to think that, we've discovered the system, and therefore the entire system must be mapped. No, the systems are discovered, the planets are discovered, but most of these systems haven't been mapped in detail. The maps need updating based off of things moving around in space. But the surfaces of planets, particularly ones that are dangerous, and moons, the vastness of these asteroid fields and asteroid belts that are in the game, these haven't been thoroughly scanned. Some places more than others, but for the most part, there's going to be so much exploration work to do to go and scan these areas and go looking for resources, and things of value and interest, for mining, or for science and research. That's or places, locations where you might want to build your homestead. I could see scanning an area on a planet or a moon and finding areas that have good geothermal activity or volcanic activity that you could tap into in order to power a facility that you build on the surface for a refinery. And instead of having to pay for an expensive reactor that you have to refuel, you can generate energy from a natural source. That's just something that is common in colony sims, space colony sims, and I could see eventually happening in Star Citizen. But it feeds right into how quantum works, and how exploration will probably work in the distant future of Star Citizen. Yeah, so the rest was history, and Raznik was an overnight sensation, charming the Empire and impressing trillions with her graceful entrance into a world of excess riches. Within days of the discovery, Prospector sales shot through the roof as people rushed to try their hands at this new career. Just as the Cold Boot team once predicted, the Prospector had given rise to a new class of miner. Now their work had equipped those independent miners to take on the galaxy. Since 2925, 18 years ago, MISC has made several iterative updates to the basic Prospector, with two models, 2929 and 2938, being considered the most significant. The 2947 model is planned to incorporate a completely reworked mining array and a new system for ore storage, which is significantly more efficient than the original. Cool article. Let's see. Close. There we go. Let's move back over to the other screen. Oh yeah, that AC is loud. I can see the mic capture picking up all the background noise from my AC. Oh, Northern Trooper says, pick in Discord if you want to share with the class. Sure, give me 1 second. Let's see. Open browser. All right. Sorry, you're going to have to hear the transition noise again, and I'll pull up that image. So here's the image that Northern Trooper shared. So let's. So there's the mole. I forget what that skin's called. There's the mole inside. So was the. This isn't a mineable asteroid though. Yeah, there have been large asteroids in game for a while, really large ones, but these aren't mineable asteroids. But eventually, asteroids like this will become assets that can be mined by, like the Orion. And Orion would park next to an asteroid like this and be at work on it for an entire play session, if not long, probably longer, just based off of how huge it is and how much material would come out of that. Carbon mole, very cool. But yeah, if you think about how big that is in relation to the rocks that a mole normally breaks up, and then the mole is a fraction the size of the Orion, both in terms and length and beam and mass. Even an Orion would have its work cut out for it, mining a rock that big. Now, granted, a lot of that rock would be inert. Of course, it's not going to be a whole bunch of you're not going to have some like 90% rock like that. But that's the point of the mole, or the Orion, is to strip mine large rocks like that into just get massive amount, get rid of the break up the rock, get rid of the inert material, and find massive amounts of usable minerals in those, and then refine them, and then somebody takes up the giant Orion bags and then takes them off to to be sold or to be used to fill a contract, for some sort of production, what have you. But yeah, there are big rocks like this. I'm hoping now there's multiple asteroid packs in terms of like the shape and surface textures that CIG have developed. Nazarus and I talked about it in the Road to 100 Star Systems Spectrum Pulse that we did. The development of the spacescaping, whether it's the asteroid fields and the gas clouds and all that. And so they've developed multiple asteroid packs. They're going to develop more as they go on to further develop the game. But one thing that is my hope and dream is that the asteroid facilities that are in development right now end up being something that, in the long, far distant future of Star Citizen, that we are able to build our own asteroid facility instead of just finding one operated by NPCs, or maybe we can even claim one. But I would like to be able to maybe use a system like Rastar, because Rastar is meant for the surface, but they talked about doing things in space with it, and maybe you could use Rastar to design your own asteroid facility and lay it out how you want with the modules that you want built into it. I'm going to put the hangar here and the habitation area over here, and because I'm going to be mining in this area, we're going to have a refinery, and here's where the cargo is. Those sorts of things, because you could take an asteroid that big and make it your own little space homestead. Instead of having one on the planet, you could carve out a large hole in there, or maybe even a bigger asteroid, and use that for your homestead, your base, because that's something I'm more interested in than building a base on a planet. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I will pull up the image of it's an asteroid facility that is in Squadron 42 and was shown during CitizenCon. So let's find that image really quick, and I'll put it up on the screen. There you go. So this is in the Odin system, and this was shown at CitizenCon. And as you can see, it looks like there's a hangar over here to the right, and there's maybe some sort of refinery looking thing over here, like where you could attach to something to drop off fuel or to unload your refining, your mined material. There's little surface structures on here that maybe you could dock with, or maybe one of these is another hangar. They could and it's probably and potentially could be tied together in the interior with different modules and hallways, just like a space station. And the way these are being described is that they will be able to build asteroid facilities kind of like a space station, but within an asteroid, using the procedure locations tool. So a little bit of a tangent, but something that I think is just super interesting and super cool. And I started thinking about these because they mention asteroid facilities in the lore in the Galactapedia for the MISC system in the different asteroid belts there, and that was added last year. Not long after, asteroid facilities were added to the progress tracker, which have been in development for over a year by a bunch of artists. So I think we're going to see a asteroid facilities type reveal at CitizenCon, maybe even sooner, like we did for underground facilities last year at CitizenCon. But yeah. So yeah, that's all I've got for this evening. I've got to get to my laundry and get ready for the day for tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be feeling better. Hopefully this Zycam does its thing, and maybe I just need a good night's sleep. But I just want to say thank you to all you guys who have been hanging out in chat and joined me this evening. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you being a part of community. Hey, it's Nick and North End Trooper. Thanks for being active in chat. Good to hear from you guys, and always enjoy talking with y'all. Remember, I posted about it on Twitter, and the event is listed in my Discord, but Armchair Admirals and Generals is back on Saturday at... Hold on, let me verify the time before I misspeak. Yeah, it's back on Saturday. It'll be 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time, where I'm at right now. And Atira Kell and Night Cobb and I are going to be talking about the weapon rebalancing that's sort of been going on behind the scenes, under the hood, by CIG over the last year. They started with missiles and torpedoes with 317, and then there's been some mentions talking about guns more recently with 318, and then they're also starting development of different ammo types. So we're going to talk about those things. Flak against an arrow. We're going to be talking about those things. What we expect out of it, based off of what's being said, what we would like to see, and how those things factor into the larger changes to the game in terms of resource management and master modes. And those are the sort of questions that we're going to be discussing during Armchair Admirals and Generals this next Saturday. Because I'm working on my boarding actions video, I haven't had time to readjust and modify the OBS scenes for Armchair Admirals and Generals to accommodate new guests, and I wanted to make backgrounds for the new people that I've added to the team. And so this month is just going to be me, Atir Kel, and Nightcob. Next month, the plan is hopefully for the third week of June-ish, when I'm finally home for good, to do episode 7, where we're going to be talking about components and subcomponents, again with Nightcob, but then the hope is that Kale Katarn and Drinkers with Gaming Problems, Badgers, will be able to join us. Nightcob, who you know is a engineer, works on the nuclear reactor on U.S. Navy subs, and then Kale Katarn is spent 20 years in the Air Force doing I forget which type of maintenance, but working on multiple different aircraft and airframes within the Air Force, and then Badgers, Royal Navy veteran, who is also a damage control officer. So we're going to be talking about components and subcomponents, how those are going to factor into gameplay and resource management and engineering, and same sort of questions. What they expect, what they would like to see, that sort of stuff. So keep an eye out for that next month. But yeah, thanks again so much. Appreciate you guys. Everyone have a good night. 07. I'm not going to bother rating anyone just because I'm tired. Yeah, and I don't feel great. But love you faces, and have a good night. Goodbye now.